regulations under the Atomic Energy Act, Cap 154. These regulations are meant to put into effect that act. So I extend my sincere gratitude to each one of you for having taken time off your busy schedule, and also consider our invitation key, whereby you have demonstrated keen interest in partnering with us to develop these regulations. They do not only touch our operations wherever we have to import, export, transport, and even use radiation sources. I'm very glad amongst us we have importers of these sources, we have transporters from entities of government that regulate transport, even those who are the tail end in regard of the value chain as regards to use of these radiation sources. At Council, we have a long procedure of developing regulations, and this is based on the Act Section 72, which empowers Council to make regulations under the Act to put into effect the provisions of the Act. And the laid out procedures to do this is quite long and a bit comprehensive. Where we are today is one of the stages among the many in involving such regulations. As you may be aware, that the peaceful applications of atomic energy and nuclear science and technology has now become indispensable in our national development agenda. Actually, we cannot do away with nuclear science and technology applications if we are to better our lives through technology and other fields that this technology is used. You are aware the radiation sources for now are mainly used in the medical field, in treatment and diagnosis of diseases, as well as in other fields, including agriculture, industry, security, research and education. In all these areas, radiation sources are being used. But for your information, as of now, we don't have any facility in Uganda that manufacture these sources. Although there are prospects when a research reactor, which is being planned by our colleagues in the Ministry of Energy, starts to operate, where it is expected to be producing radioisotopes, which will be used in the medical field. This means, given that basis, that we don't have any facility that produces them locally, and yet we use them, it is only logical that we have to import them. And when you import them, we have to transport them to the facility or place or location where they are going to be used. And when they reach the destination of use, they are going to be used. And you can't use it for one day and return. You have to store them for the period you will be in possession of those sources. And at the end of their usefulness to you as an individual, you may have to either dispose them off through the prescribed procedures, or return them back to the supplier, of course following the guidelines issued by the regulator. So it is important, therefore, that this chain is properly regulated. If it is not well managed, you are very much aware of the risks that are associated or involved with the use or interaction at any level with radiation sources. So it is important that as we take advantages of the benefits that emanate from the use of nuclear technology, we also take a keen interest to reduce the risks associated with them. The risks and the standards that we have to comply with are very much and well stated in international instruments, for which Uganda, some of them are a party. For example, the Code of Conduct on the Safety and Security of Radioactive Sources, together with its associated guidance documents for import and export, and also for management of these sources. We have to use these sources in compliance with those instruments that give the standards, as well as the International Convention on the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism. All these are put in place to ensure that the risks associated with these sources are minimized by complying with those standards. Now here in Uganda, what we have to do is to domesticate some of these requirements, putting into view our local characteristics, and come up with a workable, comprehensive, enhanced legal and regulatory framework that will regulate or guide the regulation of the import, export, and transportation of radioactive sources. That is the key reason why we gather here today. Ladies and gentlemen, the Council has gone a long way to make a number of regulations. This is just one of them, and many of them are different stages of development. But specifically for this regulation, which is named the Atomic Energy Control of Import and Export of Radiation Sources Regulation 2025, aims to achieve several critical objectives, among which include to close regulatory gaps. We've encountered through our regulatory work when we are in the field that there are gaps which need to be closed by way of regulations, such that the transboundary movement of radioactive sources and movement of radioactive within the country is well regulated, with the aim of minimizing the associated risks during their transport. 2 is to enhance nuclear security. Many of the users of these sources pay less attention to the security of these sources, in that we have had cases where sources are stolen and they go in the public domain. So these regulations will help guide the users of these sources to enhance the security of these radioactive sources, whenever they are in their possession, of safety of these sources. Also, to enhance and foster international cooperation by aligning our regulations, legal and regulatory framework to the international atomic energy and safety standards and requirements. in regard to import and export of radioactive sources, we also demonstrate to the international community that we are aligning our operations in compliance with the international safety standards of the IEA. And this gives the international community confidence in the regulatory oversight of these sources to ensure that they are safely used and securely managed. Last but not least is to provide clarity and efficiency. You see, these draft regulations aim to streamline licensing processes which you stakeholders need to be aware of, define roles and responsibilities clearly, and also provide a predictable regulatory environment for you in the industry as you use these sources in medicine, in industry, in research, in agriculture, and other fields where they are used. Therefore, as we convene today, we have an opportunity to discuss in details all aspects that are needed to be included in these regulations to make them effective, practical, implementable, and conducive to the use environment of nuclear science and technology in this country, in the processes and operations that are engaged in a day-to-day basis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm aware that you have a practical experience on the ground as regards these sources, or you have academic knowledge surrounding this subject. Your expertise and knowledge will help address operational challenges and practical implications of these proposed regulations. I encourage you, therefore, to be active and point out all the gaps you identify, so that we make these regulations comprehensive enough to achieve our major objective of nuclear safety and security whenever these sources are within our possession, within our use, and within during the transport from one place to another. So I request you to scrutinize the provisions critically, identify areas that may be ambiguous or overly burdensome, and suggest practical alternatives that you see may enhance and make these regulations a very good regulatory framework for the import and export of radioactive sources. I have confidence in my colleagues from ministries of energy and other ministries and departments and agencies of government that after this engagement, we shall have an enhanced regulations that will serve the goal and objective we intend to achieve. My colleagues from the Council, I urge you also to take a note of all the ideas, suggestions, proposals being put forward for us to consider, so that they are considered in the defining of these regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, this means the task before us is significant. It is about safeguarding our people, our environment, and our national security. You are aware radioactive sources have security aspects associated with them. Therefore, it is about enabling the beneficial users of these regulations peacefully while mitigating the risks. By the end of today, I'm confident that we shall have a piece of legislation, of course subsidiary legislation, that is comprehensive enough and encourage all stakeholders to participate actively in this in the applications of this technology. So let us have an open and productive discussions. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for your commitment to discuss, of course demonstrated by honoring our invitation and keeping time. We welcome you once again, and we assure you of our mission as Council of ensuring the safe and secure use of atomic energy for peace and development.
Vamos, Kawagu.